The warning has been issued, but will Aston Martin actually listen? Because right now, one decision, just one, could define not only their 2026 future, but potentially waste everything they've been building toward for years. And the scary part? From the outside, it might look like the right move. This is not just another Formula One rumor. This is a deeper story about timing, ambition, and the dangerous line between bold strategy and self-sabotage. Because when a team like Aston Martin F1 Team starts getting warned by insiders and experts, you know something serious is happening behind the scenes. And it all comes down to one question. Should Aston Martin stay patient or gamble everything right now? To understand the situation, you have to rewind slightly, not too far, just enough to see the trajectory. Aston Martin didn't just show up to Formula One to participate. They came in with a long-term vision. A vision backed by massive investment, a brand new factory, elite engineering talent, and perhaps most importantly, a belief that they could fight for championships in the new era of F1. And for a moment, it looked like they were ahead of schedule. Early in 2023, the car was quick, not just good midfield quick, genuinely competitive. Podiums started coming in, and suddenly, Fernando Alonso was back fighting near the front, reminding everyone that given the right machinery, he's still one of the sharpest drivers on the grid. But then something changed. Development stalled, while teams like Red Bull continued to extract performance and others like McLaren surged forward mid-season. Aston Martin seemed to plateau. And in Formula One, standing still is the same as going backwards. Now fast forward to today, and the situation is far more complex than it appears on the surface. Because Aston Martin is no longer just developing a car for now, they are developing for a completely different future. New engine regulations, new aerodynamic philosophies, new opportunities to reset the competitive order. And this is where the warning comes in. Several voices within the F1 ecosystem have cautioned Aston Martin against making what they call a major damaging decision. That decision? Diverting too much focus too early toward 2026 at the cost of their current competitiveness. At first glance, it sounds logical. Why not go all in on a fresh rule set where everyone starts from zero? But Formula One is never that simple. Because shifting resources is not just about engineers sitting at different desks. It's about wind tunnel time. It's about CFD allocation. It's about how much development you're putting into your current aero package versus conceptualizing a completely new car philosophy. And here's where it gets technical. Under the cost cap and aerodynamic testing restrictions, teams have limited resources. Every hour spent on a 2026 concept is an hour not spent improving the current car. Every simulation run dedicated to future regulations is a compromise on present performance. So the real question becomes, when is the right time to switch? Too late, and you arrive in 2026 unprepared, chasing teams who started earlier. Too early, and you sacrifice seasons of potential results, momentum, and maybe even driver confidence. And this is where Aston Martin's situation becomes uniquely dangerous. Because they are not a backmarker team with nothing to lose. They are a team on the edge of something big, but not quite there yet. And losing that momentum, that can have long-term consequences. Think about it. Formula One success isn't just about engineering, it's psychological. It's about belief within the team. It's about attracting top talent. It's about convincing sponsors and partners that you are the next big thing. If Aston Martin suddenly drops off in performance because they shifted focus too early, what message does that send? And more importantly, how does that affect drivers like Alonso? Because let's be honest, Fernando Alonso is not here to wait indefinitely. At this stage of his career, every season matters. Every opportunity counts. If the team signals that the present is being sacrificed for the future, it raises a serious question. Will their drivers stay fully committed or start looking elsewhere? Now let's talk about the engineering side of this gamble. The 2026 regulations are expected to bring major changes, especially in power units and energy deployment. The electrical component of the engine will play a much bigger role, meaning teams need to rethink how they balance internal combustion with electric energy recovery and deployment. This isn't just a minor tweak, it's a fundamental shift. And Aston Martin is preparing for this with a significant move: their partnership with Honda. A brand new engine relationship, new integration challenges, new packaging constraints. And that's where things get even more complicated. Designing a car isn't just about aerodynamics in isolation. It's about how the aero platform interacts with the power unit. Cooling requirements, weight distribution, energy deployment strategies, all of these factors influence car design from the ground up. So if Aston Martin commits too early to a 2026 concept and gets it wrong, they won't just lose one season. They could lose an entire regulation cycle. And in modern Formula One, that can set you back years. But on the flip side, there's the opportunity. Because if they get it right, if they nail the concept, the integration, the aero philosophy, they could leapfrog established giants. We've seen it before. Think about how teams have capitalized on regulation changes in the past. Getting ahead early can create a competitive advantage that lasts multiple seasons. So now the dilemma becomes crystal clear. Do you play it safe and continue developing your current car, maximizing short-term performance and maintaining momentum? Or do you take the risk, shift focus early, and aim to dominate the future? And here's where the warning becomes even more important. Because insiders are not just concerned about timing, they're concerned about overcommitment. There's a difference between preparing for 2026 and abandoning the present entirely. And according to these warnings, Aston Martin might be dangerously close to crossing that line. Let's break it down further. Aerodynamically, current F1 cars rely heavily on ground effect. The floor generates the majority of downforce, meaning small changes in ride height, suspension setup, and airflow management can have massive performance impacts. If Aston Martin stops developing their floor aggressively, they risk falling behind in one of the most critical performance areas. Then, there's tyre behavior. Modern F1 tyres are extremely sensitive to temperature windows. Car setup, downforce levels, and even driving style all influence how effectively a driver can extract grip. If development slows, tyre degradation can become worse, race pace drops, and suddenly a car that once fought for podiums is struggling to stay in the top 10. And then there's energy deployment. Even with current regulations, managing hybrid energy systems is crucial. When to deploy, how to harvest, how to balance power across a lap, these are all strategic elements that can make or break race performance. If focus shifts too heavily to future systems, current optimization suffers. So let me ask you this. If you were running Aston Martin right now, what would you do? Would you protect your current progress or risk everything for 2026? Because there is no perfect answer. Only trade-offs. And that's what makes this situation so fascinating. Because behind the scenes, this isn't just a technical decision, it's a philosophical one. It's about identity. Is Aston Martin a team that builds step by step, gradually becoming a title contender? Or are they willing to take a massive gamble to accelerate that timeline? And here's the twist. Even if they choose the right path, execution still determines everything. Because Formula One history is full of teams who made the correct strategic call, but failed in implementation. A concept that works in simulation might fail on track. A power unit that looks strong on paper might struggle with reliability. An aerodynamic philosophy might be too narrow in its operating window. So even with perfect timing, nothing is guaranteed. And that uncertainty is exactly why the warning exists. Because the margin for error is so small. Now imagine this scenario. Aston Martin shifts aggressively toward 2026. Their 2024 and 2025 performance dips. Drivers become frustrated. Momentum fades. But then 2026 arrives. And the car is not dominant, not terrible, but not leading. Suddenly, they're stuck in the midfield again, with no immediate way out. That's the nightmare scenario. But now imagine the opposite. They balance both projects carefully, continue developing the current car, maintain competitiveness, build confidence within the team, and then arrive in 2026 prepared but not desperate. That's the ideal outcome. But achieving that balance, that's one of the hardest things in Formula One. Because resources are finite, time is limited, and every decision has consequences. So as Aston Martin moves forward, every update, every development choice, every internal shift in focus will be telling. Are they still pushing the current car, or are they quietly pivoting everything toward the future? And maybe the biggest question of all, will we even realize the impact of this decision until it's too late? Because in Formula One, the most important decisions are often invisible in the moment, but obvious in hindsight. So keep watching Aston Martin closely. Because what they choose to do now might define the next era of Formula One. And if they get it wrong, this warning won't just be a footnote. It will be the moment everything started to unravel. But if they get it right, we might be witnessing the early stages of a championship-winning project. So what do you think? Should Aston Martin go all in for 2026 or stay focused on the present and build gradually? And more importantly, is this warning a sign of caution or a sign that something bigger is already happening behind the scenes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because this is one debate that could shape the future of Formula One. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the technical and strategic world of F1, make sure to subscribe, because the next big story is already unfolding.